Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I have an interesting dark web story from a perspective that most people don't get, namely from the perspective of someone that used to actually work for an associate of a site that was sort of like Silk Road. Nowadays, I do work for a company that contracts out cybersecurity stuff, mostly penetration testing and threat hunting. It's fun. I like working on the safe side of things, doing work for the man and getting paid to break things for them. And I will never go back to the dark side of things, especially after what happened. I'm not trying to hype it up. What happened was absolutely horrifying, but it is the truth, and it's what happens when mistakes are made working with criminals. So like I said, I used to work with a couple guys that did dark web style business, mostly selling illegal stuff like drugs, and mostly drugs. In fact, it's best to just say that we sold a lot of substances to people that couldn't or wouldn't get a prescription for a premium. We had a lot of customers, and most of them were repeat customers, and we had a very well encrypted list of everyone that we had worked with in the past, including their regular orders, and we had a very well constructed method of shipping. We would ship the items in boxes that looked like they were from other companies, and we would hide the good stuff with the other stuff in ways that made it unlikely that they would be found. This was also a while back before Silk Road was actually busted, so people weren't really looking for substances like that in the mail. My part of this operation was actually system security. I was in charge of keeping the site running and making sure that no one ever got the information that we held, including who was in the operation and the list of customers. I was good at my job. We never got hit by a honeypot operative, and I was good at sniffing out cops that were trying to do purchases, and we never had a security or downtime issue. I also kept the overall site looking clean, which may not be something that really means anything, but to me, we had the nicest looking dark web market that existed. I was actually proud of the work that I'd done on it. Now that you know me, the operation, the site, and all that stuff, let's talk about the part of it that became problematic. A man that we will simply call Rob. Rob was the ringleader of the whole thing, and we knew that he was in charge. Hell, most of us just accepted that it was his business as long as we got paid. We didn't really care on what went on. Rob was the business major that had decided working doing illegal stuff was the best way to pay back the money he owed on his student loans. And he was a bit cocky when it came to doing the work he did. He was actually arrested at one point on unrelated charges, and we all thought that we were going to be next, seeing how he liked to talk. Thankfully, nothing happened and he was let go. He said it was because he had a good lawyer, but I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about the situation that actually happened. As I said, we all ran a little business on the dark web selling illegal substances. Things went smoothly, and everyone was happy. That is until they didn't, and then nobody was happy. Despite all the minor hiccups that did happen, it wasn't a huge deal until we had one specific customer that was very displeased with our service. We're going to call this customer Chris. Chris had a drug addiction, and Chris was probably our most frequent customer. And Chris was also a very aggressive person when it came to communications. I know what you're thinking. Why are you in frequent communications with a customer if you're selling illegal items on the dark web? And fortunately, it was Chris that was in communications with us. There was always something wrong with his order. I wasn't involved in getting the content, the shipping, or the actual business side, so I just kind of ignored the situation. I ran the back-end servers, which included our messaging system, so I saw all the communication that went on. And fortunately, Rob, being the hard-headed jerk he was, liked to antagonize Chris when he was being irrational. He would message him saying that he was an idiot, to not purchase from us ever again, and etc. And the last time this all went down, Chris messaged back saying that if we didn't get his order right, he was going to go to the cops. There are a handful of things you don't do when you're dealing with people on the dark web, and one of them is to threaten to contact the police and shut down the operation. When this message came through, Rob sent out a correspondence to all of us that this customer was to be blacklisted and that he would be contacting people within other markets to make sure that he was never sold to again. The problem is, Rob sent this message to Chris as well. My guess was that it was to send a message like, "You mess with us, I cut you off." Well, there are other things you don't do to those that operate dark web businesses, there are also things you don't do to irate drug addicts that know how to use the dark web. And this situation went from unsavory to an absolute hellstorm. At the time of all of this happening, I was actually staying with Rob for a few days due to some personal issues at home. He had turned the back half of his basement into a bit of a spare room and server closet, so I was lucky enough to sleep where my work was. Anyways, I was actually downstairs working on something irrelevant to the situation when I heard what sounded like someone kicking in a door. I immediately ran up to the top of the stairs, but stopped in the doorway to see what the hell was going on. And there, I see a 6-foot-something guy that had to be north of 300 pounds standing in the doorway with what looked like a shotgun in his hands. And Rob on his knees, literally begging this guy not to kill him. I heard Rob call him Chris, which told me all I needed to know. This wasn't going to end well, and I was likely going to be next. I stepped quickly down the stairs as quietly as I could, and I went down into the area beneath the steps, basically behind the server closet, and I dialed 911 on my phone. When they answered, I just told them the address and said that I needed officers immediately because there was a man with a gun that had just broken in, and then I hung up. I didn't want to give them any of my information since, I'm kind of a criminal. And no more than a few seconds after I hung up, I heard screaming and a gunshot. I knew what that meant. I waited there until I was certain that he had left, and then I did the most cowardly thing that I could. I climbed my way up and out of the basement window with my backpack, and I walked calmly to McDonald's that was pretty much across the street so that I could see what played out. The cops showed up, then the ambulance, then the coroner, and the crime scene guys. I listened to the police radio to see if they ever caught the guy, and there was some crosstalk about the situation, but in the end, they jumped to encrypted channels, and I lost track of what they were doing. My stay at Rob's house was a very temporary thing, and I had most of my stuff in my backpack, so I wasn't overly worried about them knowing that I was there. I did go into cleanup mode with the servers though. They were nuked entirely, so no information was ever pulled. It was a pretty messed up situation, and I really did feel bad for what happened to Rob. But in the end, if you're going to work as a criminal, you have to face the consequences of being a criminal. Did he deserve to die? No, absolutely not. But that's not how Chris saw it. So my final suggestion, avoid the dark web. Deep web stuff is fine, it's pretty safe, but do not go down that rabbit hole, because sometimes what you find may be unpredictable.
Illuminating the Dark Web, posted by TobiasWade. July 1st, 2018. A face is staring into the camera. Sandy hair, mid-20s, male, somewhat reminiscent of a squirrel in his rabbit mannerisms. The big day is finally here. This is our first time testing out our new spider bot on the dark web, and we're both pretty excited. We've only got a week left to iron out the bugs before Kevin has to defend his thesis, but I don't anticipate any problems. Kevin is nervous as hell, but the kid is an absolute genius. He's still configuring his Tor network and VPN, so I'm going to catch everyone up who is just joining the stream now. Typical web crawlers haven't been able to explore the dark web because they can't index specific inputs like forums or authentication passphrases. I'm mostly here for moral support and don't understand it completely, but Kevin's SpiderBot has machine learning algorithms which have been training the last few weeks to learn a new adaptive method of keyword selection. You hear that derisive snort at my oversimplification? Yeah, that's Kevin. Say hello, Kevin. The streamer looks off camera. Off-camera voice. Shut up, Brian. Whatever. Forget you too, man. Based on the training results, we should be able to index a couple thousand pages per day. Google only reaches 16% of all available websites, so that means it's going to take us approximately forever to get through it all with our current computing power. This is just proof of concept though. All we're using at the moment is Kevin's old laptop that his dog Crinkles practically smashed. The power cord was stretched across the room, and this little bulldog comes barreling right through. Hold on, it looks like we're good to go. If all goes well, then in a couple months, you're going to start reading about how the dark web ceased to exist because of our little spider. I'm going to end the stream now to let it get started, but join us again tomorrow to explore all the cool stuff we found. July 3rd, 2018. The sandy-haired man is back. There are bags under his eyes, but he's as enthusiastic as ever. Hey guys, it's me again. Sorry for the delay, but we hit an unexpected bump. Spider was doing great and had already logged a few hundred sites when it abruptly stopped with this weird error. It keeps telling us that it has already indexed everything. Kevin is able to manually direct it to keep it finding new sites, but as soon as it's automated, it just says it's finished again. Kevin is practically ripping his hair out, but it's not like this has been a complete waste of time. We did discover a brand new, never before seen color that I'm pretty sure didn't used to exist. All Kevin had to do was put on a white t-shirt a week ago, then eat nothing but barbecue chicken wings and sweat out the sauce. The camera starts to pan to the left. An unseen hand shoves it back into place. Anyway, Brian rambles. It looks like we might still be a while, so... Got it. I don't understand it, but I've got it. Well, whip me red and call me applesauce, because it looks like we're back in business. What? That's not a saying. Nobody says that. Kevin, you have got to get out more. People are saying that like all the time. So what was the holdup? It's all linked. Look at this. A drug marketplace, an anime forum, a counterfeit producer, some dungeon porn. You have my attention. It's all referencing the same destination. Spider stops indexing because it thinks the whole dark web is this one site. I'm going to try to get in. That relates to a joke I know. So a drug lord, a weeboo, a con man, and a porn star all walk into a bar. This isn't a real joke. Just shut up. I'm trying to concentrate. And the barman says, what are you guys doing together? So the drug lord says, they've all got something to hide. Even the porn star? It's gotta be a blackmail thing. These guys must be tunneling into other websites to get info or hold them ransom. But there's no way they could be everywhere at once. Every single site Spider finds. Oh no. Oh no, please God, no. Oh, like, that's a real saying? They're on my computer. I have no idea how they traced the spider back, but the mouse is moving on its own. It's typing an address into Tor. What are you doing? Popping out the battery. The power button isn't working. No, don't. The streamer dives off camera. Dude, give that back. The streamer returns in front of the camera, holding a battered old laptop. Nah, man, this is what the people are here to see. Let's find out where these hackers are trying to take us. I swear to God, Brian! An overweight torpedo wearing a blotchy shirt of unclassified color hurtles across the screen. The streamer's chair tips over and both men go down. The laptop is left in front of the camera, where a long line of seemingly random letters and symbols are typing themselves into the address bar of a Tor browser. The website loads. A countdown timer starting at 15 minutes begins to tick down. Kevin and Brian stick their heads up over the desk in unison to stare at it. At least shut the damn camera off, Kevin says. Only if you let it count down so we can see what happens, Brian replies, swatting away Kevin's hand, which stretches for the laptop. God, you're such an idiot. Fine, whatever, just shut it off. The sandy man begins to wave, but the screen cuts off halfway through. When the stream turns, the timer reads 15 seconds. The angle is weird, as if the camera is in his lap, hidden beneath the desk. The looming Kevin is pacing and muttering to himself in the corner of the screen. Brian surreptitiously leans over the camera and gives a thumbs up, mouthing the letters, OMG. The timer hits 0 and stays there. A dog starts barking somewhere in the distance. Are you happy now? Kevin grunts. Give it back, okay? There's a knock at the door. A single knock, loud and deliberate. The barking intensifies, snarling, growling, all hell breaking loose in its little world. Not really, Brian whispers. A second knock, then a third, each about 3 seconds apart. You get it, both men say at nearly the same time. They stare at each other until the next knock. This is your fault, Kevin wheezes in a voice halfway between a whisper and a shout. Yeah, he replies. He approaches the door, the camera angle still at waist height. Then, in a louder voice, he says, Who is it? Are you still recording? Kevin hisses. Unbelievable! The screen is filled by the door as Kevin gets closer. He's right up against it, so he's probably looking through the peek hole. A sound loud enough to max out the speaker volume. The door explodes inwards in a wave of splinters. The screen shakes erratically, and there's nothing but splinters and lances of light and screaming. A gray-skinned hand streaks across the camera. If you freeze the frame, you'll notice that the skin looks more like coarse cloth and that there is stitching running up and down the fingers. The stream cuts off. July 10th, the streamer is back. His face seems paler. His skin is breaking out, and his hair hangs in greasy strings around his face. He's sitting at a bare table in a concrete room. The lights are dim, but there's a large man standing in the back of the room. His hands are folded, motionlessly in front of him. Yeah. Hi, guys. This might be my last broadcast for a while. He glances back to the figure in the room, but there's no movement. Back to the camera. Kevin's okay. I mean, he's different, but he's okay. He glances back to the corner of the room, but the figure still hasn't budged. Brian's shadow shifts with his movement, and for a moment, the stitched cloth skin of the person in the corner is visibly running all the way up his arm. I guess they had something like Spider. They were only tunneling into websites on the dark web anyway. I guess those kinds of people could disappear without many questions being asked. They wanted my followers to know, though. Brian swallows. He looks behind again. Then, in a sudden burst of movement, grabbing the camera and dragging it up to his face. Close your browser now! Shut off your computer! The figure in the back has started to move. Great, lumbering steps charging forward. Brian's words are a breathy rush. It only takes 15 minutes for them to find you once they've established a connection. The cloth hand seize Brian from behind and drag him off camera. Don't do this, Kevin! He shouts. How long has your browser been open already? Just shut the damn thing off! There's a heavy thud. A heavy-set face appears in front of the camera for a moment. The human eyes look strange, embedded within the cloth. Stitches run down either side of the face along the jawline. The cloth might just be sewn to the skin, but it fits so closely to the anatomy of Kevin's face that it looks more like the cloth has replaced it. The stream cuts to black, replaced by the last few seconds of a depleting timer.
I used to be one of those people that liked to go on the deep web for the fun of it, and would frequent a number of the underground-style sites. I work in the IT industry, and for some reason, the deep web and dark web are these strangely taboo things that we aren't supposed to discuss with normal people. But it's not exactly the best-kept secret. Those of us that do go out on tour and look at things that are at their best questionable, it's almost like we can smell it on the other users. We all have this weird sixth sense that can tell if the person next to us is one that peruses the deep. Okay, not really, but typically, we can tell by your demeanor if you are someone that knows what they're talking about, and most of the time, something on the deep web will come up. I'm the kind of person that knows what they're talking about, probably a bit too well. Let me put it this way. If it was something that was shady, sketchy, and savory, or otherwise legally gray, I was probably spending some time each and every day looking at it to see what it was. I spent more than my fair share of time on the few deep web community boards, mostly chatting it up with like-minded people that also had way too much spare time on their hands. My favorite pastimes were posting on conspiracy boards. It's crazy what people will say when there's no limit or filter. And honestly, some of the things that they say out there may be more true than we'd like to believe. Case in point, hitman sites totally exist and are more than likely legitimate businesses. Well, the ones that aren't honeypots anyway. Aside from that, there are a lot of marketplaces that exist on the deep web for things that are questionable. But the dark web is where things turn to downright illegal. I'll admit to having spent my fair share of time and money on the dark web markets. I've bought things that are illegal to own, and I have seen things that I shouldn't have seen. And things that I definitely didn't want to see. That said, I wanted to write this quick story about one of the marketplaces that actually kind of freaked me out and made me pull away from the illegal stuff. There was a particular marketplace that existed that claimed itself as the be-all and end-all of the dark web markets, and was essentially this massive dark web version of Craigslist or Facebook Market. If you were looking for something that you shouldn't have been and were willing to spend Bitcoin, then you were in luck because odds were that they had it. Bootleg movies? Check. Viagra from another country? Check. Computers potentially stolen from a government facility? You guessed it. Check. However, it got a bit deeper than that. They also had services that you could pay for. Nothing like hitman sites, but if you wanted to quote-unquote have a good time with someone that's about to die, then you could. Hey, I don't judge others for what they do behind closed doors. I keep my opinions to myself and I just live my life. That said, I actually stumbled on something that I initially thought was, no way that's real, until I messaged the seller, and then, well, I'm not so sure anymore. It could have been a honeypot or a Fed trap, but if so, it was a damn good one. I was perusing the market one afternoon looking for something stupid. I think I was looking for shoes or something. Don't ask. When I stumbled upon something that simply labeled new. I like new things, so I eagerly clicked it and went to read what was so interesting about this new product. Well, this new product wasn't really a product. The description read something like, and I am paraphrasing, "Have access to any age up to 7 and can deliver. Forged paperwork extra. Must have payment ready for any and all offers." Obviously, my first thought was that it was a full-on honeypot or a scam for people that were looking for children, which would be a fairly niche scam if you think about it. So I defaulted to honeypot, and because I was a bit of an edgy 20-something, I decided that I would message the seller and mess with them a bit. I logged into my account on the market and went to the user to send them a message. I asked them something along the lines of, "How do we know you're legitimate and not a Fed trying to arrest someone?" They responded with, "You don't." Which kind of solidified the honeypot idea that I had in mind already. I responded with, "Can you prove that you're legitimate? I have the Bitcoin ready if you're an actual seller." Again, just trying to goad this person into giving me anything that would confirm my personal bias. They sent me a message back saying, "Boy or girl, and how old?" I had to think on this for a second. I wanted to give him something that would be tough to respond with, so I said, "Boy, around 5. He then asked me for my name, and he sent back some pictures of a little boy that looked to be around 4 or 5 years old. In the pictures, the boy looked pretty happy. He was in a basement area playing with toys, and there was one of him watching SpongeBob on TV. I was actually getting a bit nauseous with this whole thing, so I responded back saying, "Is he the one that's for sale?" At this point, I felt like I needed to gather as much info as I possibly could to take to the authorities. The seller responded, "He's one of them, yes." I then asked him to prove that he didn't just send me pictures of his own kid to try and bait me. He then asked me my name again, which was a question that I had tried to avoid prior. I was a bit nervous at first, for obvious reasons, so I told him that my name was Marcus. It's not, but you don't tell people on the dark web your real name. After I had told him my name, I hadn't gotten a response back for about an hour, and I was almost certain that he was a Fed that was tracking me at this point. That is, until he did finally respond. I got a message back with an MP4 attached to it, and in the video was the boy playing with a couple of Hot Wheels. In the video, you could hear a man talking, and I'm assuming that he was the seller. The man asked the boy what his name was. The boy said Tony. The man then asked who was filming him, and the boy said Uncle Will. Then the man said, "And who is this video for?" The boy said, "Uncle Marcus." He then asked, "And why are we making the video?" The little boy laughed, then responded with, "To find a new mommy and daddy." There was a bit more back and forth to prove that this kid was legitimate, and to show that the seller wasn't messing around. He then ended the video with, "Now that you can see that little Tony here is very real and in need of a good loving home, let's talk payment. I prefer Bitcoin, but I will take any of the current stable coins. I'll be waiting for your response." You'd better believe that I took that information and video straight to the authorities in the form of an anonymous communication. I know, I'm a bit of a coward, but when you're a criminal taking down bigger criminals, it's best not to put your name on anything. I don't know what happened with the case. I'm assuming that they passed it on to the FBI division that handles this kind of stuff. But I haven't been hunted down and arrested, nor killed yet. So I guess things are going smoothly. And unfortunately, this should serve as a proof that yes, you can literally buy anything off the dark web. And here are the top comments from my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.